Good evening. Tonight we're going to do Module 3, Lesson 34. I can multiply two-digit multiples of 10 by two-digit numbers using a place value chart. Use the associative property to rewrite each expression, solve using disks, and then complete the number sentences. So we have done associative property. That is where we get to take a multiplication problem and get to move it around and regroup it so we can multiply it quicker and break it down step by step. But we're going to be using the place value disks to represent the associative property and how we did this. So let's get started. So what we're going to do is we are going to have to put in the number that we are multiplying here. So it looks like we're going to put in 4 ones, 2, 3, 4, and we are putting in 3 tens because it's 30, 2, 3. And if you look on this side, we have 20 multiplied by 34. Over here, what number are we missing? Well, we have the 34 times by 10, so we need a 2 here. And because we use associative property, we get to group them up differently. And we're going to bring down a 2 here. So this is telling me that we need to make some 2 groups over here. Before we start moving the different groups and we multiply, we're looking over here and we're saying we're multiplying by 10. So we need to multiply each one of these by 10. So let me just change my color here. So when we multiply this by 10, we bring it over. So now we have 1, 2, 3, 4. And we're multiplying this by 10. We're moving it over. And we have 1, 2, 3. Oops. All right. Well, since we have the 2 groups, because we're multiplying by that 2, we need to make 2 groups here. So this is our first group. Here's our second group. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's our second group. 1, 2, 3. So now we have our 2 groups. And we started out with 340 because that's what we had over here. But because we multiplied by 2, we needed to make another group. So now what we have here is 6. We have over here, since we doubled it, we have an 8 in the tens, and we still have no ones. So our answer to this problem, if we continued on, 2 times 340, and that's where we got this, because we regrouped and we put them, multiplied by 10 here. We multiplied by 10 here to move them over into our next column. We got 340. But because we're multiplying by 2, we needed to make another group, which gives us 680. In our next problem, we're going to be using the associative property to regroup the numbers so it's easier to multiply. So we have 3 times 10, because how did we get that 30 is that we multiply by 10, because 3 times 10 gives us 30, and then we're multiplying it by 42. Okay, so now let's put 42 in our chart. We have 2 ones, and we've got 4 tens, 2, 3, 4. And now, because, let's bring down our 42 over here, because we're using the associative property, we're regrouping them. And now it tells us that we need to take those and multiply each one by 10. So I'm going to take these ones and multiply it by 10, and we get 2 in the tens. We take this group here, move it to the hundreds because we're multiplying by 10, and now we get 4 hundredths. So there's 400 20. But if you notice, we are multiplying this by 3. So we need to take this and make 3 groups because we're multiplying by 3. So we have our first group. Now let's add 2 more. 1, 2. Now we have our 3 groups. Over here, let's do that. We have our first group. We're multiplying by 3. So we need to get 3 more groups. And now, because we always have to, whenever we get more than that 10, we need to bring it over and regroup again. So over here, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 hundredths. So we need to take 10 of these and bring them over to the thousands. So here we go. We're left with 2 in the hundredths, and we bring this over to the thousands. So right here, we are left with 2. And over here, we are left with 6. So let's see what it's equal to. 1,260. Because these, that's when we just multiplied by 10, but because we're multiplying by 3 groups, it now turns into 1,260. So basically, this is 3 times 420. And when we multiplied that, we get 1,260. And the associative property helped us kind of rearrange and get this. We can multiply quicker that way using the associative property. Okay, we are not going to use the place value chart. We are going to use this problem right here, and we are going to use the associative property to help us solve this problem. Okay, so the associative property, remember, we regroup the numbers that help us get to a product much quicker. All right, so let's get started here. Let's take 30 times 21. Let's take 30, and we're going to break that apart. We're going to do 3 times 10 times 21. All right, and then we want to use the associative property and kind of mix it around. Let's take 3 out of there, and now put 10 times 21 together. All right, and now if we continue, let's bring down our 3 times, and 10 times 21, we get 210, and 210 is equal to 630. Now if we just try to do this our regular way of multiplication, we can do 21 times 30, and we just get 2 zeros, right? And get a placeholder here, and then 1 times 3 is 3, 2 times 3 is 6, and we get 630. Another way to do this, guys, would be 21, I call it the hangout method. Put 0 off to the side. Don't forget about them, and you can get this quicker. 3, 2 times 3 is 6, and then bring down your 0. You get 630. So using the associative property really helps us get to a product much quicker by just regrouping the numbers differently. All right, now in our last problem, we're going to just do this one right here, 40 times 43. And we are going to use now the distributive property to solve this problem. All right, so what are we going to do here? We're going to kind of break up that 43, all right, and multiply those each numbers by 40. So we have to focus about breaking this guy up and multiplying each one of those numbers to that 40. That's basically using the distributive property. We're distributing that 40 to each one of those numbers. So let's try to do that. So let's do 40 times, let's break this up, 40 plus 3. All I did was break up the 40 and that 3, because 40 plus 3 is 43. So now let's take this, each one of these numbers, and multiply it by 40. So we get 40 times 40 plus 40 times 3. And when we do that, we get, because 4 times 4 is 16, how many zeros do we have? We have 1, 2, 1,600 plus 4 times 3 is 12 and your 0. And when we add this all up, we get 1,720. And look, I love my funnels when we get to the final product. Excellent job. All right, the next couple of problems, give your best. Using the place value chart and the associative property, please find 30 times 34. And I really would like to see your work tomorrow in school. Now for the second problem, just use the associative property to solve 60 times 42. Without the place value chart, just use the associative property. Regroup the numbers. And I'd really like to see your work tomorrow in school. Now for the last one, use the distributive property to solve this problem. And I really would like to see your work tomorrow. Remember, this is the distributive property. This is where we're going to be breaking apart that 23 and multiplying it with that 70. And that's where we get those nice looking funnels. So please bring your work in tomorrow. I want to see those cool funnels. Excellent job. Those who say I can't do it, let's take away that T and say I can do it. We're always giving our best. Have a wonderful night.